Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to talk about electronic games and entertainment.
Everybody please listen up. I forgot the microphone. And then ladies, you're going to speak up a little louder and try to listen a little.
I'm Lin Wei Ci. She is Yang Jiaqi. So, this is our index of presentation today. The evolution of electronic games. The 1970s is the rise of the video game, arcade game. Space War and Pong were two representative games in that time. Space War is the first coin-operated game. Pong is table tennis simulator, symbolized early computer games, and it was placed in bars with pinball machines. The end of 1970s is the golden age of arcade game. In Japan, the arcade games were so popular, even caused a national coin shortage. Arcade game look like the picture, and this is Space War, the first coin-operated game. And this is Pong and pinball machine. Video game consoles. The first video game consoles for home is Magnavox Odyssey. It also included a Pong type game. So when the arcade game version of Pong became popular, the Odyssey began to sell well. Home computers. The birth of home computer market is parallel the emergence of video game consoles. In the year of 1977, there are three important computers in the world, including Radio Shack's TRS-80, Commodore PET, Apple II. The development of computer for video game expanded the ability by allowing complex games to be invented and create a new form of interaction between computer and players. Until 1980s, the rise of Nintendo. The first Nintendo was released as the family computer in Japan, and later released in Western countries. Nintendo was the best-selling games consoles in that time. It also revitalized the United States video game industry following the game crash. Computer game flourish and innovate. Although newer games continue to come out on arcade game format, they couldn't compete with the home console market. With home computer invented in 1970s, gamers choose to stay at home to play computer and consoles. During mid-1980s, game designed by business computer rose fastly. It means that game creators use the increasing power of computer to create more complex games. It also means that computer games become a profitable market. Next. 1990s, the rapid evolution of video games, including computer games, gained mainstream acceptance, and the invention of portable game system. Video game reached wider audience in the 1990s with the advent of the first-person shooter genre and non-action games. First-person shooter is a type of 3D shooter game, featuring a first-person point of view. The kind of game push realism to new height and attract public attraction. As for non-action games, appeal to people who didn't generally play video game, increasing the different forms of audience. The development of portable game systems was another important aspect of video game during the 1990s. The portable game design meant users could get hours of playing time on a set of batteries, such as Nintendo, using the same principle. Okay. Until the 21st century, personal computer gaming became a niche market. From the year of 2000 to the end of decades, the popularity of personal computer games has gradually decreased. The computer gaming market focuses on game players who are willing to pay a lot of money on personal computer. These personal computers are designed specifically for gaming and including multiple monitors, which allow the owner can update to newer game version. Although this type of market is profitable, it is not enough to compete with the audience for the much cheaper game consoles. Okay. The trend of home consoles, in the late 20s have shown a steadily increasing market for video game. Newer game console system and family-oriented game have made it common for many families to engage in video game as a group. For example, PS3, Wii Sports, Xbox 360. The trend brings in large numbers of new game players, including many old peoples. Next, I will introduce 4 representative games until today. Okay, first, Guitar Hero and Rock Band. This game both a new means of marketing and kind of cross-media stimulus. The game were a mix of music, documentary, greatest hits album, and game. They included footage from early concert, interview with band members, and of course, songs allowed users to play along. The Great Theft Auto series. The game had players stealing cars, so not surprising given its title, and it committing a variety of crimes to achieve specific goals. The game's violence made it popular with players. The GTA series has evolved over past decade by increasing the realism, options, and the content. However, increasing freedom also results in controversy as player can choose to assault law enforcement agent, perform murder sprees, and so on. Lawsuits have attempted to tie the games to real-life instances of violence, and the GTA gamers are also the target of political investigation into video games. World of Warcraft is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. It's RPG games. Each player can choose a character that belongs to one of several races, such as orc, elf, and human. Players need to finish the test, and as you get the experience, you can obtain the new skills. In a game, players also can earn virtual money by killing enemies or other players. Due to the violence game pattern, here got some controversial issue. Later, my partner will introduce to you guys know. Wii Sport and Wii Fit. Wii Sport and Wii Fit brings dramatically effect on audience that had never predicted by game makers. Old people and family use Wii as a way of family bonding. As for Wii Fit, it took advantage of motion control game playing to enter the fitness market. Okay. Before I talk the impact of video game on culture, let you guys to watch a video about playing video game. Wait. So the video says that many studies, such as playing Super Mario, shows the increase in cognitive function, memory, and strategic planning and fine motor skills of hand. It means hand and eye coordination after playing the game. As for action game, it can also increase attention to detail in individuals. Okay, next. As early as the 1980s, such as number mantras and word mantras were designed to children develop basic math and grammar skills. According to research, multiplayer games involve cooperation with other players, facilitate strategic analysis skill, and encourage teamwork. Okay. Negative effect of playing video game. First, separation from reality. Some players become so addicted in games that they actually believe they are part of virtual world where the game takes place. This may be an enjoyable experience for some games, such as adventure games, but it have negative effects. Social isolation. Following on spending too much time on playing video game, gamers also put themselves at the risk of social isolation when they spend most of their spare time on playing games. Increased aggressive behavior. Okay, video game with violent content can lead to aggressive behavior in gamers. One study has shown that gamers who like playing first-person shooter style game are likely to adopt a detached view of society. It also develops aggressive thought and tendency. Okay. The effect of video game on other media. Video games have been accompanied by music and film since the invention of arcade game. Music and film can be heard over a game's title screen, options menu, as well as entire gameplay. Next, the concept of video game as art. The concept of video game as art is a controversial topic within the entertainment industry. Even art games, games purposely designed to be a work of creative expression, have been challenged as works of art by some critics. Okay, I will pass to my partner.
Next, I will talk about the topic controversial issues and blurring the boundaries between video games influence, entertainment, and education. First, let's look at the controversial issue learning objectives. The first is describe controversial issue related to modern video games. The second one is analyze the issue and problems with rating electronic entertainment. The third one is discuss the effect of video game addiction. The last one is examine the other issues surrounding video games. With the development of technologies, video games changed from simple to complex. More and more controversial issue arises with the increasing realism and expanded possibilities of video games. Today, I would like to start the issue with video game violence, which was struggled by international culture since the dawn of video games. Video games violence has been controversial from their earliest days. The Death Race is an arcade game released in 1976. Drivers drive over stick figures, then turn into XS. This game was controversial, even though the stick figures were not human. Video games had new potential to world of games and entertainment. It's the ability to simulate murder. Video games. In 1990s, the enhanced realism accompanied a rise in violent games as companies expanded the market to target older demographics, such as the graphics. Video games has a deeply influence on children. There are many real-life violence acts involving video games. An obsession with video games easily causes crimes. For example, the first one, the 1990s Columbia High School massacre. Because the teenage criminals had the enthusiasm for video games, this event has caused a huge sensation. In 2008, a 17-year-old boy shot his parents and killed his mother because his parents took away his video game. Also in 2008, 16s were arrested for attempting carjacking and robbery because they were reenacting scenes from Grand Theft Auto. Video games causes aggression. People enact video game-related crimes already have psychopathic tendencies. Then let's watch a video. It's a new reported the issue of violence in video games.
I think we have to kind of relaunch here. Every time we do this, we have to relaunch.
As same as movies, video games has its own rating systems. For movies, the R rating means restrict. When children under 17 watching the movie rated R, parents should accompany with them. The NC-17 means no one 17 and under admitted. Children under 17 are limited to watch the movies rated NC-17 whether parents are there or not. Obviously, this kind of movies is designed for adults, not for children. For video games, The Entertainment Software Rating Board rates video games as M and AO. M means mature, 17 and older. AO means adults, only 18 and up. It's a rating system for video games. So adults have a duty to identify the video games which are suitable for children. If R labeled AO, AO label can have a devastating effect on game sale. Many retail outlets will not sell games with AO rating. Video game addiction. The American Medical Association uses video game overuse to describe the effect on individuals' lives, such as relationship and health. Socially marginalized people have more of tendency to overuse games, especially online role-play games, such as World of Warcraft. Patterns of time usage and social dysfunction in players who overuse games are similar to those of other addictive disorders. Some group gamers are anonymous. They are run by former online gamers and family members affected by heavy game use. This problem is not new but be prevalent. For example, in the early 1990s, the result of addicting to a game named MUDS are dropping out of college and getting divorced. Video game overuses can result in painful, repetitive stress injuries. Seriously, it can cause cases of death. For example, in the early 1980s, the players in their late teens who wants to get the top score in video game named Berserk suffered a fatal heart attacks. In 2010, the death of 3-month-old baby from starvation while her parents played an online game at Internet Cafe. However, video games still have some positive influence in one's life. I will talk about James' experience of playing video games. Jim was a journalist working in a financial business firm because he was addicted to a game named Quicker 3. He had poor performance in his job. He training a team to complete a virtual tournament. Then he lost his job. After he fired by his boss, he was hired by a game magazine because of his expertise in the game. Jim wrote a book named Travel in 3 Cities to share his gaming experience. In this book, even though he had a positive change in his life, he was not gloss over the fact of negative influence in game. Sexism. Young adults men make up the majority of video games. In 2009, a study found that 16% of gamers were male. Women make up less than 12% of game designers and programmers in industry. In the list of top 15 people in the video game industry for 2010, no female developers appeared in the list. Laboratory studies have shown that violence and aggression in video games affect men more than women, leading to higher levels of male aggression. Video games have sexism existed except this, and it has video games fell into a stereotyping in order to attract consumers. The game designed for females always be soft and gentle, and the game for males always be violent or fighting. Therefore, some video games have the gender limitations. Blurring the boundary between video games information, entertainment, and communication. There are 3 learning objectives. The first one is identify how video games allow previously marginalized groups to enjoy new social experience. The second one is explain how virtual world can be used to facilitate learning. The last one is describe the different ways video games have been used to communicate message. Video game and the social world of sports. Video games get more complex and flexible, which can provide new kinds of social interactions. Sports are often portrayed as a social platform where people can learn new skills. Video games have similar capacities to social world of sports. It's similar to sports. Individuals from different gender, ethnic, and class background. The social platform of online games is certainly no utopia, but players have no limitation in gender, races, and nationalities, at least in the physical realism. Virtual world and societal interactions. The players who has no desire to achieve any of prescribed goals of game would simply walk around in social areas and talk to new people, such as the game Second Life. In this virtual world, users create avatars to represent themselves. It based heavily on the aesthetics and design of video games. Massively multiple players online role-playing game, such as World of Warcraft and EverQuest. This game is no longer to be a solitary activity, and is enjoy a virtual community. Functions as a kind of hybrid of social media and video games. Relay informations and simulations for more complicated interactions. It's replay the performance to better understand the simulation, and it's a direct influence of video games. Mobile and games. Social media outlets used video games to expand their communication platforms by coupling games with social media sites. Game designers have pushed the influence of video games to unprecedented levels. Many social networking websites have emerged in recent years due to the increasing popularity of video games. Mobile phone and gaming. Social networking games can be played via Internet-enabled mobile phone. Mobile phones are used to communicate directly so that it makes gaming a common means of social interaction. Adding games to phone creates a new language to communicate. Sometimes its platform gives new means of expression with the addiction of video games. For example, during the week of Valentine's Day in 2010, the creator of a game named Farmville reported that users sent more than 500 million crops of virtual gifts to each other. Video games and their messaging. The advocacy games engaged players with an interactive political message rather than sending out traditional media aids. Mainstream groups turned to video games to convey messages. Next, let's enter the question part.
Question 1. When is the golden age of arcade game? Yeah, you can answer. Yes, the answer is A. Wait. Yeah, thank you. Next. Which of the following is positive effects of playing video game? Three answers. Thank you. Yeah.
Next, which following controversial issue mentioned in today's class? Yes, it's A. Question 4. The players who has no desire to achieve any of the prescribed goals of a game could simply walk around in social areas and talk to new people. Is it true? Right, it's A. This is our reference. Thank you. That's all.
Of things, I guess let me talk just a little bit about the presentation. From my perspective, this is not the most important chapter of the book by any means, probably the least important. But obviously gaming is a very, I don't know, invasive is the right word, but it is certainly part of our society, for better or for worse. As the presenters mentioned, there are some bad aspects. Even some of the bad aspects, first of all, let me say, normal gaming I pretty much hate. My son flunked out of university because of gaming. He had straight A's the first semester and straight F's the second semester because he was up all night gaming. And then after that, he kind of flirted with university and never got his degree. He's doing okay in life. He's found other ways to make a living, but he was a brilliant young man that's very capable of straight A's. And so from that one experience, I hate gaming. At the same time, I've experienced very positive gaming with education. I think I mentioned before, I became involved with computer-based education all the way back in 1994, and I saw a gamified curriculum do miracles. It really kept the students' attention, and they learned very quickly. I mentioned this before, but the kids that were struggling in school because they couldn't keep their attention or whatever, some of them were being homeschooled by their parents, and the gamification and the quality of the program that we were using was good enough that in 2 hours a day on the computer they could, on a nationalized test, keep up with kids going to 6 hours a day at school. So if it's done right, it can be extremely valuable in very positive ways, like education. Marketing is becoming, gamification is an important part of marketing. A lot of businesses are excelling in creating their own proprietary games that then promote their brand. Other brands, other companies are making it part of their reward system. So not only do you get points for going to Starbucks or someplace on a regular basis and get some free food and stuff, but some of them, I think it's Taco Bell. I don't know if there's any Taco Bell. I haven't seen a Taco Bell here, but anyway, Taco Bell has a rewards program that includes games in it that if you do a certain amount in the game or a puzzle or whatever, then you get some extra points. And so they have more engagement through their program than Starbucks by having games as part of their rewards program. So in marketing, it can be important. I still don't rank it real high in my priority of marketing skills, but again, I'm kind of biased because of what happened to my son. On the other hand, I actually kind of lived through this era. It talked about some of these first games like Pong. I was playing Pong when it first came out. My former brothers-in-law were very young, a lot younger than my ex-wife, and they got their old Radio Shack, one of the first PCs on the market, and they both became professional IT people. One of them became a top person at Hewlett-Packard, and then broke off, and he's in a different company now, doing more, entrepreneurial things. And his brother kind of did the same thing with Novell. He started off with Novell as one of their IT experts, and broke off from there. So they started off very, very early in the computer age, and it created their careers. They've done very well with it. But part of it was they started off with games, with Pong and stuff like that. They started doing their own programming in the old Radio Shack, and they kind of grew up with in the computer age and became high-level techies in top companies. And so I kind of went through some of that too, and they would, if they were going to play Pong, I'd play Pong. And I enjoyed that sort of stuff early on, and it certainly got me more there. Buying a PC early probably caused me to buy one of the early Commodores and get into the computer age myself a little faster. I flirted with games early, but as I said, I especially when I saw my son being overly prone to games when he got into high school, I turned off the games. So at the same time, sharing my bias against games, some of the things that were said that in the book and by our presenters reflecting the book are more anecdotal than provable. The fact that kind of what I was saying earlier about pornography, you have individuals who give very strong testimony of how it affected them. And I believe that testimony. My my youngest daughter married somebody who was a pornography addict, for example. And so I certainly know how it affected her life and led to her divorce and so forth. So I take those things seriously, but at the same time, I'm just telling you that a lot of social scientists, particularly those of a more liberal persuasion than I am, would argue that you can't prove it, that you can't consistently apply the stimulus and get the same response over and over again. So in other words, the fact that somebody went out and shot people after playing games doesn't mean everybody goes out and shoots people playing games. And even the statistics that they showed, while they seem, oh, that's proof, well, actually, violence in America has come down considerably in the last 10 years. So what does that prove? So if we're going to blame games on the rise of violence, what do we do when the violence subsides? We're still playing games. So correlation is not always causation. Whatever you're studying, I'm studying marketing. When I see correlations, I have to question how likely is that to be a causation? Or are there other factors that could cause that correlation? So, for example, while I actually included in some of my videos, there's a statistic that I actually use that says if you have 1,000 pages on your website, on average, you will have 3,500% more traffic than if you only have 50 or fewer pages. So if you have again 1,000 pages of content versus 50, you're going to have 3,500% more traffic. But is that causation or correlation? Because there's lots of other reasons why people might be coming to your website. Especially, for example, those who have 1,000 pages of content means they probably have bigger staffs. They may have bigger advertising budgets. They may have bigger brand. They may have lots of reasons why they may have more people involved in social media. There's lots of reasons why that company with 1,000 pages of content may have 3,500% more traffic than somebody like me who has 50 pages and no brand and no employees and no advertising budget. So I actually have a website that has 500 pages, which in theory would drive lots of traffic to it. Not 3,500, but about 1,000. At 500, it should drive 1,000 traffic. It has no traffic. Why? Because I have no advertising budget. I'm not promoting it. I'm not doing anything to make it happen. So that just obviously doesn't have to do with gaming, but it has to do with the problem of statistics. Correlation is not always causation. And so social scientists who don't want to believe that gaming has a negative side are going to use that truism. That just because you can see a correlation, that doesn't prove it. And just because you have anecdotes that this kid did something bad after watching games, and this kid did something bad, and this parent did something bad. The example, the anecdotes, she had maybe 5 to 10 anecdotes. That doesn't prove it. It means those people had a problem with games. Just like Ted Bundy had a problem with pornography and ended up being a mass murderer. I agree. I believe him when he says that his exposure to violent pornography caused him to, or at least had an influence on him becoming a mass murderer. I believe him. But not everybody became Ted Bundy. And so the skeptics will use this argument that you can't prove it. You simply can't prove it. So I find that Jack Lowell in this chapter may be more of a conservative persuasion as I am. I do believe it, but I also know I can't prove it. There's been lots of efforts to prove it, and well, let me put it this way: there are scientists social scientists who have basically committed their entire career to trying to prove the negative effects of these things, whether it be gaming or pornography or whatever. And at the same time, there are the skeptical social scientists who keep, saying, no, you're not proving, you're not proving, you're not proving. So that you need just to understand that there's that controversy. And that's why there's a controversy. You don't have a consistent stimulus and response situation. It's not consistent. And so, and also, how are you going? Probably the best way to prove it would be through experimentation. You take these people and see which ones commit the most crimes. There may be you may be able to get some correlations that way there'll still be the question, what else was going on in their lives? So there'll still be that challenge. And so you'd have to take people totally out of their environment, put them otherwise in a totally different environment, and make sure that everything else, all the other factors in their lives was the same, except one was playing games and one wasn't. One group was playing games, one wasn't. And how many people, and you have to have a big number in order to show that in the experimental treatment, these people are more likely to kill people. So, we take 2 dormitories here, and one dormitory is playing games all the time, the other dormitory is not. We see if anybody in the first dormitory kills somebody here at Chimon. And not our proof. So it's difficult to do the science on it, and that's all I'm saying. I do believe it. I do believe there's negative effects, because I've seen my son. He didn't kill anybody, but he's hurt his life dramatically by being game addicted. And so that I do believe. But as I said, when you get to the actual science and you look at the big numbers, then you have the offsetting. You'll have people saying, aha, there's the good things and there's the bad things. They affect people differently. Therefore, you can't say it's bad because it's also good. And I've seen good things with it. Like I said, in education, a lot of organizations use games to do their training. The Air Force, U.S. Air Force, I think probably all national air forces use games to train their pilots before they put them into a billion-dollar plane and say fly. They wanted them to crash in a game before they crash in reality. Soldiers, on the negative side, soldiers are exposed to games, so they get over the psychological impact of killing someone. That suggests that that's a bad thing. Do you really want people? I mean, in an army, they can't be going psycho. So you need them to be able to kill somebody and survive it psychologically. But that suggests that if you're using a game to teach a soldier to be able to kill without feeling it psychologically, then it should be basically having the same effect on a teenager. That they're not feeling, in some cases, might stop feeling the impact of killing somebody, first in a game and then in reality, perhaps. So those are kind of the pros and con arguments. Like I said, I do believe that some of those negative things are real. But you'll have social scientists arguing you don't have enough evidence, that anecdotes are not enough, and the statistics are correlational, and so forth. So it becomes a complicated issue. Okay, and some other subjects. We have no class on Monday. In fact, we have a lot of Monday classes being canceled because of holidays. So we have 3 in the next month. Basically, Monday, Christmas, and New Year's Day are all on Mondays. And so basically our semester is almost over. I'm not going to try reschedule classes, but I may give you some extra work on Moodle. And so, for example, last class I said I wasn't going to have you watch that one video out of class. Well, now it's your Monday class. Okay, so the link that I put up for Kevin Kelly, the founding executive editor of Wired, that is now your Monday class. So go ahead and watch that video. It's on already. The link is on Moodle already. Hopefully you'll remember some of my comments and maybe be able to pull out it'll help it be a little bit more meaningful for you as you watch that video. To me, as I said, it has a bigger impact on me today than it did 9 years ago when I first watched that video. And that is about when I first watched the video. I have a downloaded copy on my computer because it was very interesting to me then, but it's more interesting to me now because now I actually see everything he prophesied coming about. So it's more real now. I thought, oh, wow, he was right. Very smart guy. So watch that video, and there will be questions on the quiz on that. But also because of the cancellation of some of our classes, I'm rearranging some of the presentations. And so I guess I'll just pass this around real quick for those that haven't presented yet. Some of you will present yours. We had some empty days or some days when either I was going to present or there was just one during the week already scheduled. So, for example, Team 16, the next team, you can't present on Monday. And so Team 16 will be presenting on Wednesday. Well, that means Team 17 can't present on Wednesday. So Team 17 will present on the next Monday, which is the 18th. And then but the next week, week 12, I only had one team scheduled to present. That was Team 18 on economics. So instead of on Monday, they will present on that Wednesday, the 20th. Then we have Christmas. So Team 14 on ethics will be presenting on the Wednesday of that week, the 27th. And whereas that's Team 19 will be presenting on the 27th. Team 20, therefore, can't present that week, so they present, and they can't present on New Year's Day. So they're presenting on Wednesday of the following week, the 3rd of January. That's Team 20 on media and government. And then that pushes 21 to the 8th of January. And nobody has signed up. There is no Team 22. So 21 is the last one on the 8th of January, and that's our last week of classes. And so, and the topic of what would have been Team 22 is the future of mass media, and I think we talk about that all the time. So I don't think I need to teach that chapter per se, because I teach it all the time. So anyway, if there's any questions, I guess I won't bother to pass this around per se, but I'll put it here, and after class you can come look if you have any questions about when you're supposed to present. So everybody's being pushed back a little bit. Do remember also when I pass this around next week, next Wednesday, I put a slot here. It says Class 20 makeup video. So Class 20 is not next Wednesday. Class 20 is Monday to watch the video. So go ahead and sign. If you watch the video, you can sign your attendance because we need a complete attendance sheet. So each of the, and I'll do that for each of the days. We will go ahead and sign in on the days when we have a makeup class. You'll have some sort of video or something for those days. It won't be as long. Won't be obviously as, I'm not like the video on Kevin Kelly is only 20 minutes long. I want you to watch it, definitely. I want you to think about it. And there will be, quiz questions on it. Maybe even a few more extra quiz questions than normal because I want you to really think about that video. It's a good video. But your actual class time is only 20 minutes per se. So that should allow you to get caught up on anything else that you're lacking. Okay? So that's that. Okay, what else do I need to cover? Anything? Well, I still don't have the PowerPoint from the last team. Was that team? I get mixed up here. Okay, so team 14, I still need your PowerPoint and your questions and answers. Please get those to me immediately. Because those need to go up on video, on Moodle, excuse me. we skipped a week on quizzes, partly for a variety of reasons. So your quiz will be basically on 2 weeks of material, so forth. And that may be the case as we have these other holidays. I may only give you one quiz for 2 weeks because we didn't have a full slate of days. So, but I might, in that case, count them a little extra also, because they're over. If it's like one covers 3 days of class instead of 2 days of class, give you a little extra credit for that. Any questions on any of that stuff? Okay. Let me going to go into let me first off, I'm going to, do I already have it turned up? I mentioned before there's a program that I recommend called IrfanView. And with IrfanView, you can hit just C on the keyboard, not Control C, just C. And you can tell it to capture what's on your screen. But more specifically than just print screen, which does this kind of the same thing, this allows you to save it in a particular format. Like this case is set up to save it in TIFF, which is a higher quality format. And I can save it exactly where I want to save it to. And I can name it what I want to name it. So here I will leave it as history. It also puts in exactly what time and day and second I've saved it, if I can keep that or not keep it. I could just say just history and then put a number, consecutive numbers, but this other stuff also tells me when did I make a copy of this, whatever it is I'm seeing. And so it has some other possibilities, but all I had to do to take a picture of something, hit Control F11. So this is a good program. It's a freeware, but it's also, that's just one function of it. It is basically Adobe Photoshop, but free. But it has this additional function that I find very useful. So anyway, it's already been started. So I'm going to go through some, and I think I'm going to relates to influencer marketing. And what it really relates to is what influences people the most. And still in this day and age, one of the main things that influences people is other people. And in social media, that can be very helpful. You do see that people tend to be more influenced by print ads and TV ads than online ads, so that has to be taken into consideration. Down here are sponsored posts, that's paid posts in Facebook and stuff like that. Their credibility is down quite a bit. Video ads that appear prior to a digital video, such as in YouTube. We see ads popping up. How powerful are those? We see that's kind of low. Search engine ads. That, again, is where you do a search for something, and then Google will put in a few of their paid ads on top of it and a few at the bottom. Just in the last, this would be older research, because just in the last month or so, Google has decided to stop putting ads on the right side and just putting them in the list. And they've kind of disguised their sponsored listings a little bit more so that you think that they're not sponsored. So they're trying to deceive you a little bit. But the first three are going to probably be sponsored ads, and then the last three in the page will also be sponsored ads. And so they're just trying to integrate it as kind of native advertising. Native advertising is advertising that looks like the content around it. So in this case, Google is trying to make its listings, its paid listings native, make you think that it's the same as all the other content. So they've just made that change recently. So their search engine ads may be more effective because they're going to disguise, and you're not going to know, or at least unless you have a professor to tell you, you may not know that the first three listings are paid listings, and they didn't come up organically because they deserve to be at the top of the page. so forth. Mobile phone ads are down towards the bottom, so forth. So that's one aspect of just of influential or influencing research is, what do people believe? And so marketers have to be aware of that. Maybe newspaper ads are worth a little more money. If they have twice as much credibility as a native ad in Facebook, then maybe it's worth a little bit more money. But you're still paying you're paying like, like 50 times as much for your audience in a newspaper as you are for your audience with a web advertisement. So is it worth 50 times as much? Probably not. So most trusted source of accurate product information to U.S. Internet users, online reviewers is quite high. Friends, family, colleagues, that would be both in person but also on Facebook. For example, if you have a friend that you trust and they tell you on Facebook that they trust a certain brand, they give you positive feedback about a brand that's probably as good as if they tell you face to face. And so that makes that important. Information from the brand itself, less so, obviously, and so forth. You see how it goes down. I'm not sure I'll get to it, but I'm going to just tell you about it right now, and that is, just take a picture of that. That currently, instead of celebrities, brands are finding that it's worth it to pay people like my former student, Alyssa, pay somebody like her to endorse their product or service. That it's more cost effective to pay Alyssa than it is a celebrity. But not just one Alyssa, but many Alyssas. And so they find people like Alyssa who have quite a few followers on their social media, and they pay them to promote their product. And they find that Alyssa is, for what they pay her, much more effective than hiring an actor or whatever, hiring a professional. And I think you probably can see why. I mean, she is more, the people that follow Alyssa are following Alyssa because they like Alyssa specifically. That's why they subscribe to follow her. It is clearly with Alyssa and many of the other social media people, is not just that she's a nice singer, but has a cute personality. And so the people are subscribing to her not for her singing only. Because as we saw, she has more than 1 million views on teaching Russian, for heaven's sake. So if you can get 1 million people to listen to your Russian lesson, then they're not there for your singing, obviously. They're there for some other reason. And so if you get enough Alyssas, so to speak, that can be very, very cost effective in promoting your product. And so that's what they're finding. And so they're out there looking for Alyssas. All throughout the social media, they're finding people who have at least, somewhere close to, they might get somebody who's close to 10,000 followers. That'd be one group. And they'd pay them probably not very much. And then they start looking for those that have 100,000, somewhere 50 to 100,000. They pay them a little more. And so Alyssa would get paid probably pretty well off of that. So she hasn't ventured into that area yet. She mentioned she was going to. And she mentioned that was actually where most people on YouTube make their money. Not on what YouTube pays them for those little ads they disturb your video with, but by sponsors who want you to endorse their product or service. So it really kind of comes back over here, reviewers and friends and colleagues, they don't have a list here for paid influencers. But in another one of the articles we may or may not get to, that is an important aspect of modern advertising, is finding influencers, people that you can pay to promote your product. Okay. They did, maybe it is down here a little more, they mentioned some guidelines that with this sort of native advertising, if you pay somebody Okay, this is where it does talk about micro and middle influencers. So again, the micro influencer is 10,000 followers. A middle influencer is 250,000 followers or whatever. Over in the left it talks about that. I think I'll take a picture of that. So trying to find those people is now an important part of advertising. It does mention that in America, and it may be true in other countries, probably is true in some other countries, but in America, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, requires you, if you're going to pay an influencer, that it's somehow indicated that this person is being paid for it. So it depends on the type of format and so forth, but you're supposed to announce that you're being paid in order to not fool people and so forth. But it can be fairly subtle, just a small tag across the bottom or something that mentions that this is, and they use code words. This is a sponsored, sponsored ad or whatever. And they don't define what sponsored means exactly. What it means is somebody's being paid here if it's sponsored. A lot of people on Facebook don't understand that still. That when a sponsored item comes in your timeline, that this is a native ad that is being paid for if it says sponsored. And a lot of people don't notice that. There's some other research that suggests, again, I'm not sure if it's in this ebook or not, that some people resent when they do finally figure out that sponsored ads are paid ads. They have a negative impact on that brand once they figure out that they've been tricked. Other people don't seem to mind. Personally, I mean, if you're paying attention, that probably should have occurred to you that if it says sponsored, that probably means it's being paid, but maybe not. But that is the ethical question with native advertising by its very nature. And again, I was probably one of the first effective users of native advertising back in 1974. Used it very effectively, and used it very effectively when I bought my first newspaper. I used a lot of native advertising. There are ethical questions about it, but more and more people are adopting it because it's also effective, financially effective. So what can I say? This is just here showing if you pay somebody to be one of your influencers, what do you do with that video? Presuming it's a video, for example. And they're saying, obviously, it goes on social, it may go on your page, it may go on social channels, maybe several social channels. So once you find somebody and you want to pay them, obviously, like with Alyssa, you obviously want that on YouTube because that's where her followers are at. So you want her definitely talking to her followers. But at the same time, you want to get a video of that and put it on other social channels. And not just maybe run it also on Alyssa's Facebook channel. She has a lot of followers on Facebook too. That would be effective. But maybe also pay for it to go other places. Not because people know Alyssa, but she's got, a great smile. She's a nice person. You kind of feel that from her. And if what goes on with another thing that they're saying is that they don't want to script them. They've decided it's not good to script them. So even though it's paid, you want them to say it naturally. And so they're not giving them a script. They may give them some talking points, and they may redo the video a few times, but they really like the influencers, these micro and middle influencers, to say it as naturally as possible. And so once you have this person talking about a product or service, and if they do a good job with that, and the very fact that they do have a lot of followers means they probably are pretty articulate. They're pretty, there's some reason why they have lots of followers. And so those elements that make them popular in social media also would mean they probably would be pretty good if other people who don't know them see the same ad. So they take that video that she's made to talk about a product, and they put it all these other places. So they may use it as native advertising in social media to run at other people's timelines that don't know Alyssa, because it's still an effective video. They may put it on their website and so forth. So once they find an influencer and they pay them to do promote their product, they're going to take that video and use it other places too. So this is just talking about other ways they use the videos, particularly videos of people they pay to do that. Again, in this case, they're talking about more than just paying those influencers. They're talking about other types of influence as well. What do people pay most attention to, and so forth. This one is kind of misleading. I've looked at a lot of research related to types of content created versus considered most effective. The most professionals, and this does not reflect that, most professionals say that video is by far the most effective medium of advertisement. In fact, in one survey is 90 to 95% of the marketing executives felt like video was the most effective form of advertising. But in other, like I say, I looked at a number of studies about this for this book I'm writing, and even though 90 to 95% say it's the most effective, when you ask them what are you actually using, only 59% of them were using video. But 75% of the people surveyed wanted to use more video. They planned to use more video, but they also needed more training on video. So the fact that you know that video is your best medium does not mean that you're capable of doing good video advertising. So a lot of companies need people with video. For you, I would say pay a lot of attention in our video, in our different broadcasting, our different anything that's multimedia in our curriculum. Pay very close attention, learn those skills. That will make you more valuable in lots of different areas. As with myself, you may find that you're not going to be a journalist all of your life. You may find that you're going to go into marketing, maybe for lots of different reasons. In my case, the main reason I went into marketing was, I guess the first thing was I had to get into marketing to some degree when I bought my first newspaper. I had to market my own product. But as far as going full-time as a marketing director at a corporation, I went into it for family reasons. Because the newspaper had me staying up till 2 in the morning or something. I'd go home, I'd still be kind of wired, and so I might not get to bed till 3. I'd get up, the kids are gone to school. I'd go to work, would go to work about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. They'd come home from school, I wouldn't be there. One of the reasons why most of the editors left before 1 o'clock, but I'd wait till 2 because I made a deal that I would be the last editor out of the building in order to have 2 hours off, in theory, for dinner with my family. That's how much time I had with my family, was to run home from work and have a longer lunch break. Lunch, sometimes that didn't work. If we were really busy, I didn't go home at all. So it was not, being a newspaper editor of a daily newspaper was not ideal for a family. In fact, I think of all of our people, there were like 50 people in our newsroom, and I think out of all of us, there were like 4 or 5 of us who were married. Most people in the daily newspaper are single. And there's good reasons for that. It's hard to maintain a marriage if you're working until after midnight, most nights. That was why I went into full-time marketing and PR. Not because that was, I also got paid better. That was nice, by better hours, but that's not why I went into it. And so as soon as I had a chance to, as soon as my kids were pretty much grown and gone, I went back into journalism because that's what I wanted to do, and not because I got better compensation for it. I got less compensation, but I wanted to do it. So you may find yourselves in some other situation, maybe out of necessity. You can't get a journalism job, or it simply doesn't pay as well. And so if you have the skills that you can get in our program, you can also go into marketing. You may not take one marketing class. You still have the skills to be a good marketer. If you learn desktop publishing from me in the editing class, and you learn the video stuff, and if I don't know if you have a class on web design. I used to teach web design at our last university, just basic web design, as part of a class I taught there. But anyway, as many skills as you can get in expanding your ability to communicate with people. Audio, visual, video and photographic, and words and headlining and design. Everything you can learn will open more doors to you. I found that I sometimes, just out of curiosity, would learn something new, and I had no idea it was going to be of value to me. In the 1980s, mid-1980s, I guess later in probably 87, something like that, I took a class on databases. I don't know why I took a class in databases, except as a professor, besides working at the daily paper, I was teaching part-time, running a journalism program for a small college, and taking classes was free. So I decided to take a database class for no good reason. But when I went into marketing, it was a very good reason, because databases you can use to personalize communications. And so I could write a letter, bring in all the information I could about our target market, so their name, the organization they had, and anything else I could find in that company, just like you can today. What they're doing on the internet now, they're using databases. And then in my case, even before the World Wide Web, I could use the database, and I could send out a letter, what we call mail merge. We merge in the information from the database, so that's how with the database, you can say, dear Dr. Jones, and have the database personalize every Word document that you have printed. It'll put in the individual name, the company, whatever you want to do. And so it made my ability to communicate with individuals in the early years of personalized advertising very effective. And so we got lots of clients by my ability to use a database to personalize letters. So once I had, for example, the company I was working for did a lot of school design. So I had got a database of over 200 superintendents of school districts and had that information. So with one press of a button, once I created my letter, with a press of the button, it kicked out 200 letters to 200 superintendents, put in a flyer, send it off, and very effective. You can also do that. I can do that with email. Basically the same thing. You can mail merge an email. You've all gotten emails with your name on it. That's part of a mail merge process. It all starts with databases. In marketing, there's a program, there's a philosophy, I guess you could call it, of integrated marketing communication. But a big part of IMC is the idea that you can treat people as individuals and communicate with them as individuals. That's what big data is all about. Now it's getting more and more influential. So when you go to Amazon, they know your name, they know what products you looked for, they can suggest products that you might be interested because of what the products you bought before, and so forth. So one of the number one goals in marketing today is personalized communication. And that can only be done with databases. So my taking that database class was very important to me. I didn't know it at the time, but what I'm telling you is any skill you can pick up, you'll be surprised at where suddenly it will change your life. So look for those skills, whether it's computer skills, it's graphic skills, you just don't know. There's a video by Steve Jobs. You may have seen this. I may have referred to it myself, but he was talking at a graduation at Stanford University. And he pointed out that his parents were in financial trouble when he was going to university. He dropped out. He couldn't afford the tuition anymore. And but at that university, they didn't care if you just wandered into class. And so he just started wandering into whatever classes he wanted to take. He didn't get credit for them. But one of the classes he took, for example, was calligraphy, how to write fancy letters and stuff, make it look really nice. He was fascinated by that. I don't know why he was fascinated by that. I wouldn't take that class. But it became very important because Steve Jobs and Apple had to create some of the first lettering on, in the computer age. And so he created some of the first lettering by hand, basically, and made it part of his alphabet. The alphabet he had to create, the font that he had to create for Apple. So it was a skill that he didn't know why he would need it. I wouldn't have taken that class, but it ended up being important in his creation of Apple to be able to create databases, or to create fonts. And so he used his skills to create fonts. So one of his conclusions in that talk to Stanford graduates was follow your heart. Your heart will take you where you need to go. I don't know. I kind of believe that. I don't know. That's hard to quantify. That's hard to be very scientific and say, follow your heart. It's going to take you where. That's not a scientific discussion, but I kind of believe it anyway. He believed it, and I think that's evident in my life as well. That it's kind of, my heart has led me where I needed to go. So that's a good thing. Anyway, as far as other content, this would be more what's considered content marketing. What is the most influential of content marketing? Research, they're saying, is very influential. Infographics are kind of part of that. Product reviews, videos. Again, looking at what sort of content is influential. I may have talked about it before, but the whole concept of content marketing, or what's sometimes called inbound marketing, is what you can do free, what you don't have to pay for. And so you're trying to, on a video, get it to go viral. So viral videos are part of content marketing. How do we get a video to go viral? There's a whole, a lot of discussion on that. What does it take? I didn't even know. In fact, it took me a while to realize it. But I did some of the first viral marketing research ever. And I didn't connect it until just a couple of years ago. I realized, wow, I did that, didn't I? At the time, what it was actually the first research on what's how do we phrase that? Shocking good news. Shocking before we did our research, all the examples of, there were two types of studies that have been done. Studies of shocking bad news and studies of good news. But all the good news that they studied was boring good news. Kind of boring. Not really boring, but just run-of-the-mill news, like Alaska becoming a state of the United States, or the Russians putting up Sputnik. They considered that good news. Probably some Americans didn't think that was good news, but nonetheless, they put in the category of being good news. And with good news, it would flow through the society. It would take, one day it might get to no more than half of the people in society. In some cases, maybe only 25% of society. And most of them would hear it through the news media. That's normal news. But then every so often, there are other studies were of bad news, shocking bad news, like assassinations. Assassination of Kennedy, assassination of Martin Luther King, so forth. That information, that news, swept through society in one day. Everybody knew about it. And most people heard about it from other people. They didn't hear about it through the news media. They may have followed up by news media, but it went through society because it was shocking. And it went through very quickly. Ours was a regional news event that was shocking good news. And so it was the first research ever of shocking good news. So how does that relate to viral videos? That is the word that when you listen to experts in viral videos, that's the word they very, very frequently use. That if you want it to go viral, it has to be shocking. So it can be shocking good news, but it has to have a shock value in order to get people to share it in a massive way, in a viral fashion. So my research in 1978 turned out to be some of the first research that really relates to viral communications today. With content marketing or inbound marketing, the idea is how do you get this to spread through society and influence people? So in video and in YouTube, it's can we use a shocking element to it? Can we figure out some way to get people to viralize this? To what extent? In other cases, just a matter, do people like this content? Will they share it with a few people? Getting the real strong viral action is not easy. Again, you need to be looking for the shocking element of that. Whereas in this one, it's talking about all the normal stuff. What can we do that will influence people and be a positive impact in our marketing stuff? But going back to what I was talking about before, one of the purposes of inbound marketing, say you put a video on YouTube or a video in Facebook or whatever, and that video, let's say it's an educational video that people will click on, and that video takes them, it doesn't show it in Facebook, but instead it takes them to your website to show them the video. So now you're getting them to your website. That's the first key. More important than that was to offer them something free, such as offer them a webinar. Some of the longer videos that are being used are webinars, or offer them a free ebook on how to improve their online marketing, or how to become a better writer, or how to whatever. You offer them something free, and in that case they come to a landing page on your website specialized for that offer. So another correlation is that the website, the more landing pages the website has, the more traffic they have and the more leads they get, because every special offer should have its own landing page. So if you're offering an ebook, that should have one landing page. You're offering a video or a webinar that has another landing page. And so those that are more successful have at least 40 landing pages. They've had lots of special offers. And people come to that to register for that special offer. They have to give their name, and they have to give their email address at least in order to get that special offer. Most of the people who do this the most ask for a little more information each time you come back for something for a free offer. So the first time it may just be your name and email address. The second time your name, your corporate name, your corporate position, and your email address. And they will try to set it up in their memory so that once they see your name or they see you come, they're connected to your IP address. As soon as you come on, they put in the information you gave them last time. So now they're just asking for more information. How many employees does your company have? What is your role in the company? So they keep adding more information to their database every time you come asking for a new free offer. So all this stuff that I've collected for my book is stuff I've had to give up my name and information to get. So now they create this database then, and now they have a personal relationship with me. I get emails all the time from eMarketer and the other sources that I use, asking if I want to know any more about the products that they offer, that I'd have to pay for if I wanted them. Some of the companies I get information from have their own video marketing software. eMarketer just is offering information. I can get more information from them if I'm willing to pay $1,000 for it or whatever. I'm not going to pay $1,000 to eMarketer, so I continue to get their free stuff. But, I guess in some day, some place, somewhere, some lifetime, I might have the budget to pay eMarketer, and I trust their information. They're a good company. So eMarketer and I have a relationship. And they're planning at least on a reasonable share of the people who get their free products to ultimately subscribe for more information. And so big corporations, for sure, subscribe to eMarketer because they have lots of good information, and a big corporation can afford to pay $1,000 or a couple $1,000 a year for their information. I can't, so I don't. So that's how inbound marketing works, or content marketing works. You put a lot of interesting stuff on the internet. Some of it you offer to get them to come back. Some of it just naturally brings them to your website. Some of it you're trading your information, your video, your webinar, your ebook, whatever, in exchange for their information. You start this relationship, and over a period of time, by using databases, by putting all the data in and personalizing your contact, your contacts with them, you make them into clients. And that's one of the most effective types of marketing in today's world, is actually free inbound marketing. And we talked a little bit about that already, but this is more or less talking about the sorts of stuff they would do that would be influential in inbound marketing. So research, original research is basically the people that are being attracted to this. They want to know the most modern, the most up-to-date information. That's what I'm trying to do for my book, right? I'm trying to get the most up-to-date information about marketing trends, and so forth. And so I'm going to them to get their latest research. And they're consistently doing new research to share with me. Infographics are basically just a way of showing me their research by and large, although sometimes it may be showing somebody else's research, but they've just made a good graphic out of it, and so forth. So you get the idea. So this is, again, how do I use inbound marketing products to influence people in this case. So this whole document has been about how to influence people. And so it's reflected again, looking for influencers, looking for people like Alyssa to represent you. It talks about, the different types of advertising. It talks about the different types of free content you can offer and what's most effective out there. So this is, again, a kind of a type of science by itself. What influences people in marketing more than other stuff? And so you adapt your marketing according to the information that they find in these sorts of studies. Okay, well, that's we're out of time. But as we have time, like I say, I was hoping to have a little more time to share more of this stuff. Where we're going to lose 3 days, I'll probably have less time. But we'll try to cram some in. Again, this isn't journalism. But marketing and journalism are overlapping, and if you want to, especially in this day and age, there is actually some universities offer a major in entrepreneurial journalism, which is basically how to make a living off of being a journalist and not working for somebody else. And so these sorts of things are important if you ever want to become an entrepreneurial journalist. How do I make money doing it? And you can make money doing it. You may not make a fortune. Some people might. There is a school of thought that I kind of mentioned the other day that with the internet we may get into an age of superstar journalists, superstar educators that make a lot of money. In the case of I mentioned the Khan Academy, I don't think he makes a lot of money doing it because it's more of a service. He did it out of more of a public interest, but he certainly has millions and millions of people coming to his website. So if he wanted to monetize it, and maybe he should, I personally think that why not? Why doesn't Wikipedia is asking me to donate money? Why don't you put an ad on your page? I'm okay. Put an ad on your page. Make some money off of it. You've got the traffic. Make some money off of advertising, and then you want to ask me for donations. So personally, I'm not opposed to putting a little bit of advertising on Wikipedia or Khan Academy sites or whatever. Don't overdo it. Anyway, there's ways of doing it that's not too bad. So As we proceed, though, that's the sort of question that people have to ask. How do I make money? The big corporations are going, the company, the big chain I used to work for, McClatchy, is the second biggest newspaper chain in America. Last year they lost $30 million. That's how much they lost. They not only didn't make money, they lost $30 million. That's what's happening with most of the newspapers in America. So we have to figure out how to replace them. And that's where entrepreneurial journalism comes in. How do you replace the New York Times when it goes belly up, and the Washington Post when it goes belly up, and all these other companies, McClatchy chain when it goes belly up? What do you do? What are you journalists going to do to make a living and to serve mankind and make a living at it? That's the sort of era we're living in that is challenging. So learning about marketing, I think, hopefully will be helpful to you in your future, whether directly, like I did for, 10 years or so, or indirectly, as I did as a publisher, so it's kind of half and half, journalist, marketer, or as, like I say, an entrepreneurial journalist. Lots of possibilities. Okay, thank you.